بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وبه نستعين على كل أمور الدنيا والدين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. نويت تعلم وتعليم ذكر وتذكير ونفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على تمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم، ودعاء إلى الهدى ودلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى، مع لطف وعافية برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم نسألك العلم لدني والمشرب الصافي الهني وهب يغني. اللهم نسألك العلم لدني والمشرب الصافي الهني وهب يغني. اللهم نسألك العلم لدني والمشرب الصافي الهني وهب يغني. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. So last week we finished the battle of Mu'tah, right? And in the battle of Mu'tah, we saw that three of the great companions of Rasulullah SAW were martyred in this battle, right? And just to mention the ranking of these three companions and why, like, because it was an honor that Rasulullah himself chose them, right, to hold the flag for this battle, knowing that they will be martyred in this battle, right? So for Sayyidina Ja'far, his manaqib, his station with Rasulullah SAW is known, right? Because he was he was said to be the most similar to Rasulullah SAW in his appearance and his inward character. He is the cousin of Rasulullah SAW. He was older than Sayyidina Ali. It was said he was older than Sayyidina Ali by about 10 years older than Sayyidina Ali. So he was, he's younger than Rasulullah SAW, but a very beloved cousin of Rasulullah SAW. Sayyidina Ja'far bin Abu Talib, right? So he's the son of Abu Talib, right? So and of course he was the one that went to Abyssinia, right? And he was the spokesperson for Rasulullah SAW on behalf of Rasulullah to the Najashi, and also at his hands the Najashi became Muslim. So Sayyidina Ja'far, his manaqib, his station is very high with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When you speak about Sayyidina Zayd bin Haritha, right? So Zayd bin Haritha, right? So we know that his great station with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is when he, as a boy, chose Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam over his own parents, right? So when his parents, when they found him, remember the story, right? And he was a young boy at that time. And that was before the prophethood of Rasulullah SAW. He chose to remain in slavery, right, to Rasulullah SAW, than to be a free boy or free person with his parents, right? In fact, one of the nobles of his tribe. He actually chose life with Rasulullah SAW as a slave, and that pleased Rasulullah so much that he called him Zayd bin Muhammad. He changed the name of Zayd bin Muhammad. That this was before revelation. It was before anything. So thereafter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down the law that you cannot change your name. So the law doesn't allow, it's called tabani in Arabic, that means you binkan to yourself when it's not from your lineage. So that's why his name got changed back to Zayd bin Haritha. But before that law came down, he was known as Zayd bin Muhammad, Sayyidina Zayd bin Haritha. So that was, but that shows Rasulullah's love for Sayyidina Zayd, and he's called Hibbun Nabi. Hibbun Nabi means the beloved of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He is just like a son to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is the level of Sayyidina Zayd bin Haritha. Sayyidina Abdullah bin Rawaha, the third person, his station, he is of the Ansar. So he is of the Ansar, he's not of the Muhajirun, and the first two of Makkah, that's of Medina, and he's of the Ansar, and he was one of those who actually was there present in the Bay'ah at Aqaba. So he took Bay'ah dengan Rasulullah SAW, it's called Bay'atul Aqaba. So he was one of those who was there present at the Bay'ah, and he was of the first, of course, because he was at the Bay'ah, he was the first to enter into Islam of the people of Medina. So they are all considered to be the first and the foremost of the Sahaba. That is the battle of Mu'tah. Okay, today we'll take two battles, Zat as-Salasil, and there will be another battle thereafter, of Abu Ubaidah, to the seashore. I will take these two battles today. It's not that there was anything really that happened in this battle, but it was more of that there was an interesting incident that happened during the battle, right? Or during their journey, right, in the battle. But the battle itself is not really that. Like a lot of these, a lot of these battles didn't really happen. Right? It's just that they went out, right, to seek to meet the enemy. And a lot of times the enemy didn't show up and they all went back. Right? So a lot of the times this will happen in their battles. So when they say that there was a lot of battles that were done, right, in the Rasul's time, very few were actually combat. Very, very few. Right? So here we have the Sariyah of Amr bin As, that as-Salasil. Right? So he says here Rasulullah was informed that a group of Quda'a, right, and they were Bani Udara and Bani Qain, had gathered to raid the borders of Medina. Right? So again, their battles also, it is always on self-defense. Right? So when they hear that someone has gathered to go and attack them, they will send an army out, right, to show that the Muslims are strong. I mean, you don't allow people to come and just attack you like that. Right? So he called Amr bin al-As, right, and sent him to set him in Jumadul Akhirah in the 8th year of Hijrah, right, to go and see what is going on out there. Right, so it's said that this happened after the Battle of Mu'tah. Right, so it's in that sequence. Right, some people say that it happened before, but Habib was saying that is not possible. Right, because Amr bin As, some people say it happened before Hudaybiyah, the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. Right, so I hope you all are following me in the timeline. Jangan buat tak? You're going in the timeline kan? Okay, you be following the lectures tak? When it's Hudaybiyah, when it's no. So I see your faces, you're like, I'm just quoting all these names, and then you're like, alamak. Okay, so basically Hudaybiyah is a treaty whereby this happened. We just went through it prior to this. This happened when Rasulullah SAW got a dream to go do Umrah, right? And then so they went out and they were stopped. And then they had this treaty of Hudaybiyah whereby there was not to be any more fighting between the Quraysh and the Muslims in Medina. And that was the treaty of Hudaybiyah. Right, this treaty of Hudaybiyah, Amr bin As was not Muslim yet. He becomes Muslim during this span of time whereby there is ceasefire, right, in a way. It's called ceasefire. Right, so this span of time of ceasefire, peace treaty, right, that was when a lot of the Sahaba, right, who were not Muslim, because they were so busy fighting the Muslims, right, because they were so busy fighting the Muslims, they were not Muslim, they didn't have the time to actually listen to what is Islam about. So the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, we mentioned when we went through it, it had a lot of hikmah in it. Because you ceasefire, now the people of Mecca can easily go to Medina and see what's going on. So when that happened, a lot of them began to listen what is Islam. They began to listen, and then you see an entire wave of them coming into Islam. Because all this while, they just never listened. They never heard what it was about. All they know that they are the enemy, and fight. Right? So a lot of them also because their fathers were killed in Badr. Right? So because of the older crowd being killed in Badr, right, the younger crowd now they are free to do what they want to do. Right? Whereas previously they were loyal to their fathers. Right? And they didn't dare go against their father. Right? So the likes of Ikrimah bin Abu Jahl. But he later on he becomes Muslim, not now. Right? He later on. Amr bin al-As, right, he becomes Muslim. Khalid bin Walid becomes Muslim. Right, so all of them were actually tied down into kufr because of their loyalty to their fathers. Right, so when their fathers passed away, right, were killed, right, then they, during this treaty, they could listen about Islam, and they were very intelligent young men, right, these people, right, so they took to Islam very easily, very quickly. They took to Islam, right, because it just makes sense. Islam just makes sense. Right? So that's why, when it comes to da'wah, so you don't have to actually, you don't have to try to beautify Islam. It's really beautifying. Right? It's just that, for us, we tend to not show the beauty of Islam. Those who, like us who preach, sometimes we don't really show. Right? But it's already beautified and it really makes sense. It's already solid the way it is. Right? All we have to do is deliver. Right? But it's just that the way we deliver sometimes it's not in the best way. Right, that's why may Allah forgive us for where we fall short. Right, so that's why they say that this battle happened later on because Amr bin al-As was involved in this battle. Right, so which means that he's already Muslim. So it couldn't have happened before Hudaybiyah. Right, because he only became Muslim after Hudaybiyah, after the treaty, then he became Muslim. And that's why. So if you ever see like narration where they say it happened before, right? Habib said that is not. The ulama say that is not possible, right? Because he was the one who was sent by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which means he already became a Muslim. Right. So Amr bin al-As, So it was said that the Ghazwa of Mu'tah, it was after the Ghazwa of Mu'tah, Rasulullah wanted to win over the Arab tribes that lived on the border of Syria, of Sham, right? There were Arab tribes who were there. So you see how Rasulullah after Hudaybiyah, right, he's really focusing his efforts on da'wah. He's spreading the religion far and wide in the peninsula, right? So then he says that so they would not gather in great numbers and form alliances with the Byzantines against the Muslims again, right? Because these Arabs near Syria, right, they are near the Romans, and the Romans were in basically a lot of politics are here. We're going to go into a lot of politics, right? So that the Romans, they are a very strong empire, right? And then you have the Persians, also, you know, a tremendous empire. At this part of Sirah, it gets a bit you know, so if you all lost, you tell me, okay? If I'm just throwing out names here and there, you just tell me to rewind, and I will explain the names, right? So, of course, you know, it's best that you all at your own time, you just listen to the previous lectures, right? So you will see there's a build-up lah. There's a build-up. Right? But of course, Sirah also is not to be gone through once, right? Sirah, for me personally, gone through so many times, Sirah, right? Over and over and over and over again. That's why, you know, the life of Rasulullah, you get very used to the terminology and the terms, right? Because you go through it many times. Right? You're so used, right, to who is who and which companion and which place and which country and who and whatever. Right? Otherwise, you just be like, so many names, right, for us to keep up with, right? So, but mashallah, also with learning hadith, when you study hadith, you get very used to terminology also. I get used to the names of the Sahaba, right? Who did what and who was where and who was what. Right? Then you get very well acquainted with them, right? And who they were, right? The Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'in. Right? So here he says here, Sayyidina Muhammad, right? So Rasulullah, he knows that the Arabs who are living near Syria, they tend, right, to try to be on the good side of the Byzantines, right? The Romans, right, who are in Syria. Right, so he is trying to reach out to them, right, and to call them to Islam. Right, so he chooses Amr bin al-As, right, for this task because his paternal grandmother was a woman from Bali. Right, so basically there is a connection, and this is the hikmah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he wants to send someone to do da'wah, right, he actually chooses a person who is linked to them in some way. Because for a lot of people, not just the Arabs all that time, a lot of people, if it's your own person, you know, your own people, right, you tend to be more acquainted. You tend to feel more fondness of them because they are from your own line, right? So same thing, like even the Habaib, right? They, you know, when they train people in Hadramaut, when they come to, and also other parts of the world, when people come there, they get trained, and then you go back to your people, right? Because it's easier that you talk to your people. Right, you reach out to them because you know their situation, you know their life, you know their country, you know their struggles and whatsoever, you know, right? So they prefer that every country, right, you know, you train your own scholars, you train them, and then they can relate better with the people. That's why. So that's why they will always, you know, emphasize this to us that whenever we go there, right, you're not here to stay, you're here to come and take and then go back. You are meant to do that. You're not meant to come and stay because of course everybody wants to go there and stay, kan? Right? But if everyone does that, right, everyone just goes, you know, to these kind of places of blessing, you know, like Hadramaut or Syria or wherever, right, they go, and you just stay there, you know, people how? Right, you know, then you're not following the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because even in his book, it is mentioned in the first half of the book, it's mentioned that, you know, he left the cave, right, the cave of Hira. He left the cave and he began to da'wah. Right? If he wanted to, we can just stay in the cave and not go out there. Right? So these are all caves in our world. Right? These are like Tarim is a cave, these are all caves. Right? But you go there, you get the knowledge. Right? But you don't stay in the cave. You actually don't stay in the cave. You actually leave the cave. Right? So of course, Rasulullah, when he left the cave, the difficulties started happening. And that is the sunnah. Right? There's the sunnah of da'wah, difficulty. Has to have difficulty. There has to be difficulty. So this one can be said that it's a sunnah of Rasulullah to choose of people, right? To choose his messenger to be someone that the people they are fond of, right? Either by blood or by friendship or by some other way. And this is a hikmah in da'wah, right? To have someone, right, to actually who knows the people they want to do da'wah to. So he chose Sayyidina Amr bin As, right? And it's possible that these are the reasons why, right, he sent Sayyidina Amr bin al-As. It was also that Sayyidina Amr bin al-As, he was known to be a trader. So he travels through the lands of Syria a lot. Right? So they all, he's also a familiar face, right, to the people who are living there. So a lot of hikmah, right? We want to observe the da'wah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Amr bin al-As, and this is why how we learn seerah, I mentioned last week, how we learn seerah. And we're going to see, right, all the prophetic standpoints, right, of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We're going to see him teach us, right, a lot of things in what he does. So Rasulullah Amr bin al-As, he narrates and he says that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent for me, means he called me, and I came to him and he asked me to go and prepare for battle. I take my arms and return to him. So I did, and I found him making wudu. He looked at me up and down and said, "Oh Amr, I want to send you as the head of an army, so that Allah may grant you ghanaim. Ghanaim is basically the booty of war, right? The wealth from war, and safety, and desire for you good money." Then he says, "Ya Rasulullah, I did not embrace Islam desiring wealth. Rather, I embraced Islam desiring it, and to be in the company of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam." He said, "O Amr, of benefit and good is upright money for an upright man." Okay, here is one prophetic lesson here. Okay, Sayyidina Amr, there is one long hadith in the Salihin. There's one long hadith in the Salihin whereby Sayyidina Amr bin al-As was described to be at his deathbed. Right, it's a long hadith, right, whereby he's at his deathbed. Years later, his son actually narrates the hadith, right? So, and he is on his deathbed, and he's regretting, where he's at, and he's regretting a lot of things. He's facing death. So his son, the people who are around him, his son said to him, why are you in this state? But you are one of the companions of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the companions of Rasulullah, they are of the highest of stations. Why are you in this state? They don't understand. And then Sayyidina Amr bin al-As said, he said, I see myself in three parts. I see myself in three parts of my life. I see there was a part in my life whereby I was the most vicious enemy of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That was before his Islam, right? And I fight him, and I hated to look at his face, right? That was before he became the Muslim. Then he said, then it came a part in my life whereby it was the best part of my life, right? When I became a Muslim, and the most beloved person to me was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But I had so much awe and reverence of him that I've never taken my fill looking at his face, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because of how they a lot of awe to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who always looked down. So he said, even if you ask me to describe him right now, I can't describe him. I actually cannot describe him, because I've never gazed at his face out of his respect and awe. He never looked up and taken his fill of the face of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then he says, and that was the best time, right? That was the best time we had. And he says, and then came days, this is after the death of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then came days where the dunya opened up for us, wealth came to us, and I don't know. Which hair stand, the way they talk. I said, I don't know if, and I fear that the reward of what we did has been brought forward for us into the dunya. There's nothing left for us in the akhirah. And then the Sahaba, they fear, because the wealth has opened up. This could be our reward for all that we've done for this religion, and that's it. Happened in this world. The reward came in this world. And then nothing left in the hereafter, because in his hadith he mentioned that I saw Mus'ab bin Umair, the likes of Mus'ab bin Umair, whereby he died during that time, because Mus'ab bin Umair, he died in Battle of Uhud, right? So and he had nothing on him, so all of his reward we know is in the hereafter, right? But those of us who lived after, who lived to see Islam spread and Islam become a rich religion, right, where the Muslims became filthy rich. They were so rich, the Muslims, right, in that time, right? A lot of the Sahaba, they were fearful of that time. Later on, we'll take the story of Abu Ubaidah. Abu Ubaidah is one of the Ashara Mubashirin bil Jannah. It's one of the 10 who were given the good news of paradise. There are many Sahaba who were given the good news of paradise. Many, right? And in fact, the Sahaba as a whole are all people of paradise. Right? But when you hear this term, the 10 given the good news of paradise, right, this 10 were mentioned in one hadith. And that's why they are special. And their names are mentioned in one hadith. The Prophet says, Sayyidina Abu Bakr is in paradise, Sayyidina Umar is in paradise, Sayyidina Uthman is in paradise, Sayyidina Ali is in paradise, Sayyidina Amir is in paradise. And he went down on this, Sayyidina Rasulullah, 10 of them in one hadith. And that's why they are special. Because their names were given macam gitu, like that, in one go. All these 10 in paradise. I sealed their feet. Right, but Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, right, he lives for quite some time after Rasulullah passed away. Right, and you will see his story on. Right, but he is one of those, mashallah. Right, he was the governor, if I'm not wrong, in Syria, right, under Sayyidina Umar's time. Right, and Sayyidina Umar, he loves to give surprise visits to his governors, right, to see how they are living and to see how they are governing. Right, so he will come unannounced. And Sayyidina Umar, he will just come unannounced, right, to see lah. And he's very strict, Sayyidina Umar. He's very strict about certain things. Right, so it isn't like leaving someone in position for a long time. Right, he would keep changing and rotating and whatsoever, right, so that they don't get greedy or get worldly in any way. So the story goes, I'll go back to the story in a while. The story goes, right, that Sayyidina Umar goes to Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah. This is years after Rasulullah passed away, right, and he looked around, right, in Syria. So he came and met Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah. He came unannounced, and he said, Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, bring me to your house. I want to see your house. Right, Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah said, no, right, don't come to my house. Right, you don't want to come to my house. But Sayyidina Umar, he insisted that I want to see your house. And that's one of the ways where he checks his governors. Are you taking wealth? Are you living a luxurious life? Are you, so Sayyidina Umar, he does that. He'll make surprise visits and he'll go to the house to see how you live. Right, and if he sees that you're taking too much wealth, then he will, put you off of position lah, basically. Right, so Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, at first he resisted, but afterwards Sayyidina Umar, insisted that no, I will not leave, until you let me go and see your house. So Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah said, okay, come to my house. And Sayyidina Umar went to his house. His house was a very big house. Big house. Sayyidina Umar first saw, he was thinking about it. Right, then when he entered the house, he found the house, Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, completely empty. There's nothing inside. Completely empty. Like a small mattress, made of palm fiber. Nothing in the house. Right, and then Sayyidina Umar turned to him and said, what, why is your house like this? Then he said, I have this big house, so because the people here, right, they respect when they see that the governor, lives like this. Right, so the house is only for them because they don't respect. If he had lived in a small hut, right, they won't respect him. Some people are like that. The way you dress, they respect you because of that. Right, and then but the inside of the house, they don't come and see. Right, so I have no need for this dunya. I have no need for this world. I don't need anything. Right, and then Sayyidina Umar said this famous statement where he said that the whole world has changed, but Abu Ubaidah never changed. He was the same he was from the time of Islam until he died. He was the same. He was that person whereby dunya does not shake him. And Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, he's one of my most favourite Sahabi. I love Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah. He's a name you might not hear very often, right? But he's, mashallah, one of my most beloved Sahabi. Right? Sayyidina Muhammad, he was known as the Amin of the Ummah, right? The trustworthy of the Ummah, Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah. Right? By Rasulullah, he named him that. And Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, he was also hand in hand Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid in their conquests. Right, so when Sayyidina Umar became Khalifa, so later on you will hear the story again. Right, Sayyidina Umar became Khalifa, and Sayyidina Abu Bakr used to use Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid a lot, and he will make Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid the chief of all the the armies. Right, when Sayyidina Umar came into Caliphate, when he became a caliph, right, he brought down Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid. He demoted him, brought him down because out of mercy. Was more of out of mercy because he doesn't want anything to get to the head of Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid, because Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid was his own cousin. Sayyidina Umar's own cousin is Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid on the maternal side, right? So he his own cousin I bring it down in a way, right? So and there are a lot of Muslims had issues with Sayyidina Umar for doing that because he did that, right? But Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid had no issue, but Sayyidina Umar brought down Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid and put Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah up in position. He did that, and Sayyidina Umar, right? But because Sayyidina Umar knows that still the expertise of Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid will still come into play with Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah. It will still come into play, right? His expertise, right? Because he's still in the army, right? And Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah will definitely seek his counsel, Right? Because he's there in the army, right? So if like, you have a group, right, and then someone's a leader, if a leader knows somebody in the group is highly knowledgeable, right, of the matter, the leader herself, right, will go and ask that person. You definitely ask that person, you know, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Right, what's your opinion? Because you know that person in the group is knowledgeable. So in that sense, you're not even depriving the group of the expertise of that person. But you're saving that person from any form of riya, you know, any form of, you know, showing off or, you know, arrogance or whatever. That's what Sayyidina Umar was doing, because people were praising Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid. Sayyidina Khalid was going around and he was conquering land, like really, like, you know, like one's business. He was really like conquering land all around. Like just wherever he entered, he conquered. To the point people began to ascribe the conquest to Sayyidina Khalid bin Walid and not to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's Sayyidina Umar didn't like. Right, so Sayyidina Umar brought him down. Right, it's to show that the conquest will still continue even if another general in charge. Right, it will still continue because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who conquers. Right, so all stories that on we will see. And these are all basically, we go through all of these things to pull out lessons. Right, to pull out lessons. Right, that, you know, even if you're a leader or you're not the leader, doesn't matter. You just benefit. That's it. Right, so whether or not you are chosen, right, to be the president or not the president, you are chosen to be, you know, whatever it is lah, you know, as long as you are there to benefit, you will benefit. Right, even if you're one of the people who's there, you can still benefit people. So he says here, right, the Amr bin As, so he said here, right, so said to him, O Amr, of benefit and good is upright money for an upright man. And here we understand in Islam is actually better for a person who is upright, right, to take money than to refuse money. And this is from Rasulullah. It's better. Why? Because he's upright, he will use the money for good. Right? He will spend the money in Allah's balance way. Right? So I just went through this in Rasuluddin actually in my online classes. Right? Rasuluddin, we just went through about the preference of having wealth over being poor. Right? If having wealth will allow you to help people. Right? So in a sense, these people, they have money, but you don't keep it. Right? They spend it. So they're still poor, right? But they are wealthy in the sense that their income is very high. Very high income. Right? But nothing is left in their hands. Right? High income. So basically, a person who has high income, right, but halal, of course, the question of halal income, right, to help the ummah, right, is preferred, right, over someone who goes around asking people, you know, to help him. And then you become a burden on the society. Right, so this is from Rasulullah, and there are many hadiths that support that. Right, that, you know, if a person can have high income, you know, in some other way, right, but not in the expense of his religion or his ibadah. Right, so ibadah and religion is first. Right, so there's a balance lah, right, to have. So if someone says no, I'm not going to work, I'm going to be faqir, I'm not, you know, and then I'm going to live off zakat money, you know, whatsoever, because I want to ibadah. Right, they have not understood the sunnah of Rasulullah. They have not understood. Right, because Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Umar, all of them were traders, businessmen. That means their income is very high. Right, but they don't keep anything in their hands. Right, so all goes out. Right, so it comes in, goes out, comes in, goes out, comes in, goes out. That's why business is actually a good way of earning money. Because if someone has like a good business, right, then you have like employees and whatsoever, right, to do your work for you. Then you just do all the da'wah lah. That's why Sayyidina Abu Bakr, Sayyidina Umar, right, they were basically businessmen and they have their own people to do all the work. And they focus more on Rasulullah and they focus on the da'wah and being a Khalifa and all that. But the money comes in. And the money comes in. There's a lot of the Habaib are like that. A lot of the Habaib are businessmen actually. They have big businesses. Right? That they buy and sell and everything. And then they're free to do da'wah thereafter. Right? Well, you know, try to do it that way. My husband was saying, yeah, you should, you know, do the business of like selling books, you know, translate more books and make books and sell books. Right? Because it does bring in income, right? And it's ongoing. So you just have to you know, write the book one time, right? And then you just put it in the bookstores and then it sells. Right? And then you don't have to actually do anything. You just write books. Right? So Allahu A'lam, see how it goes. Right, so then Rasulullah tied a white liwa. Liwa is a flag, and gave him a black roya. The liwa is a banner, right? The roya is a flag. He sent him 300 of the nobles of the Muhajirin and the Ansar, right, for this battle. Okay, this battle, okay, basically I'm not going to read through the entire thing, right? But the thing about this battle, that Salasil, right, was that I'm looking for the hadith actually. That Salasil. that salasil. It's called that salasil because I should the entire thing lah. Because I'm trying to find where it happens, because they were in so much poverty in this battle, right? That find the hadith. Tak apa ya. Right, there was so much poverty in this battle, and they Sayyidina Muhammad, right, they walked so far, like in this battle, that they was getting blisters in their feet, right, and there was blood and pus coming out from their feet, right. So they were on battle, but they were having like really terrible sore feet, right. So they used to take cloth and put it there, right, to tie it up, right. The kind of bleeding that they had, and they say it was flesh all the way through. You can see the flesh. Right, so and they will still march on. So it's called that salasil because of what they did. That thing is called salasil. They put in the that's Zatul Riqab. That's not Zatul Salasil. Right, this is another battle. I'm confusing two battles. That is can I read it true? Right, there is that battle whereby they did that. And there is Zatul Riqab, another battle. Okay, let me read it through. Okay, so here, right, then Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam sent him off with 300 people, right, and Rasulullah sent Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah, right, same person, Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah, with 200 of the Muhajirin, amongst whom were Abu Bakr and Umar, and he told them to join Umar and to be united and do not differ or divide and separate. So they were all sent out in battle. Abu Ubaidah went forth and reached Umar, and when he wanted to lead the people in prayer, Umar said to him, "You came as reinforcement to me, and I am the leader." Right, Abu Ubaidah said, "I lead those with me and you lead those with you." Amr said, "No, you are reinforcement." So in our narration, the Muhajirin said, "Indeed, you are the Amir of your people, and Abu Ubaidah is the Amir of the Muhajirin." But Amr, he insisted, and he says, "No, that he is he is the Amir, he is the leader over the entire army." Right, so so he's reinforcement. So when Abu Ubaidah saw the situation, right, and he was a well-mannered man of good character, as I like him a lot, easy and flexible, right, Sayyidina Muhammad, he was actually a very easy person, Abu Ubaidah, right, to whom matters of this world meant nothing to, right, he is very easy on this. He said, "Let it be known to you, O Amr, the last thing Rasulullah said to me was, if you arrive at your companion, then agree upon doing good and do not differ. And if you are inclined to disobey me, I verily will differ to you." Right, Sayyidina Amr said, "Then I am your Amir, and you are in reinforcement to me." And he said, "So be it." Right, so of course he stepped down, right, Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, and that's his character. His character is to avoid conflict. Right, so if there's any form of disagreement, he will just avoid conflict. Okay, in Islam, right, there is actually a sunnah of having one leader, right, only one leader, right, and in everything, right. So even if two people were to go on travel, right, right, one of them is to appoint the other as a leader, right, or they just self-appointed lah, right. But basically, any travel or anything, there should always be a leader. Why? Right, because when it comes to decision making, there should be one person who has last call, right, and this avoids any form of split in the army or disputation, right, or split in the travel or whatsoever, or this disagreement or unhappiness or whatsoever. Even in the family, we see in Islam, even in the family, right, there is one leader, and there is the husband, right, there is the father, that he is the leader. But leader doesn't mean that he's the king, right. Leader means he's responsible. That's what it means. And he's responsible over those who he is leader over, right. So as with the Amir, and with the father, or with the people of a country, right, leader in Islam does not mean at all everybody else is your slave or something like that. It just means that you are held responsible over all that's underneath you. You are going to be held responsible, right? And that thereafter, like from that kind of understanding, in Islam, when it comes to the family unit, if a man understands that, he begins to become very, very careful with how he actually treats his family members, his wife and his children, because he knows whatever it is, he's a leader. So when he makes wrong decisions, or irresponsible decisions, he's going to be held account, right, for whatever is going to happen thereafter, right. So if this is really driven through, right. So in a sense, when we as women, when we see it, right, it's actually alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, it's not your neck that is at stake. And a lot of these these women, they want to be they say, oh, we're the same. My husband must obey me, and I must. There's no obedience. They will say this kind of thing. There's no obedience to husband. There's no such thing, right? Or they will say that, oh, we are a team. You are a team, but again, the sunnah is every team has a leader, right? So you're a team, but it's a leader still. Right? It's always a leader, because when push comes to shove, whose word will prevail? Somebody's word must prevail, right? So if both insist on their way, then you have conflict, right? And you have problems, right? But if we women can understand that Allah has placed them as a leader, which means that they tanggung, which means that they will carry all the responsibility of this, right? Then we will be very much happily, take it lah, take it. Right? So it's your word, I will obey. Right? But of course, they know they have to answer to their Lord. It's not that their leader just happily like that, and they can do whatever they want to do, and they're not held to account. Of course, they're held to account. Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala will hold them to account. Right? So if we can understand that will solve a lot of disputes. Right? Within a family or within marriage or whatever, when you understand, you're gonna choose this thing. I disagree. Right? I've given my points, but if you still want to go ahead, okay, I will be in your support. I will obey you. But right, under your judgment, you answer. You answer to Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala. If you have that kind of mentality, mashallah. And of course, they're so excited because 3 of them came back. Right. So and of course, as a wife or as a mother, if your husband, makes decisions that you don't agree with, right? There's always dua. There's always dua. Like I know my mother I'll go into this. My mother, when we were young, she wanted to really put us in madrasah. She really wanted to put us in madrasah, especially the girls. Right? My father was completely against it. Didn't agree whatsoever in madrasah education. Right? So my mother sampai nak ta'ala. Right? We hear and we obey. Right? So she didn't argue. Right? Even though she was like, no, our girls must cover up and everything. Right? But my father was like, no. Right? Secular education. Go to secular school. Right? So she sent us anyway. Right? But then she made a lot of dua for her children. Because she was so afraid of the influence, she was so afraid of the dressing, she was so afraid of a lot of things there. Dua. Right? So eventually, the mother's dua will prevail. Right? And her kids, all of them, alhamdulillah, my brothers and my sisters, right, we all, incline. So you can see also, right? So even though you have to obey, it's not that it's the end of, is it all doom and whatever, right? It's not the end of it, right? Dua. You tend to forget all these things. There's dua, there is sincerity, by the barakah of your obedience, by a lot of things. It's a lot of things to understand. But don't conflict. See, Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, his stance here, right? Don't conflict. Even though he's in a sense, he's better in ranking than Sayyidina Amr bin al-As. He's better. Why? Because he was Sabiqun al-Sabiqun. He was of the first who to enter into Islam. He is Ashar Mubashirin bil Jannah, right? He's of the 10 who are given the reward of the goodness of paradise. Right? He has been said to be the Amir, to be the Amin of his ummah, the trustworthy of his ummah. So Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah has been Muslim for years, from the beginning. Sayyidina Amr is new. He's new. Right? So when you talk about ranking, right, who Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah fought in Badr and Uhud. I mean, he has all these things in his, in his track record. Right? But of course, you see what he saw. If there's going to be a conflict, then you be the imam. It's okay. Right? So nothing wrong. I'll just be the ma'mum. No problem. Right? And this is from his wisdom. Right? Sometimes we don't understand, right, that to seek obedience and to avoid conflict is of wisdom. It's really of wisdom to seek obedience and avoid conflict. It's of wisdom, right, for a person. So obviously from the Sahaba. So then they entered the land, right? So mashallah, they entered the land, and they remained there for days. Right? He sent riders to bring sheep and camel, sacrifice them and eat. Right? There was nothing for them to actually gain, right, from this battle, right, in a way, right? Because they ate up, they entered the land of Bali and subdued them until he reached the end of their land, the land of Udra and Balqin. He found a gathering at the very end. There was not large. They fought for a while, threw spears, right? The Muslims leaned into them and they fled, right? They ran away. the army, they ran away. So it was a very simple fight. And they won very easily. Right, so they took the animals, but they ate most of the animals anyway. Right, they ate most of the animals. There was, sorry that I told you this one was that Riqab, not this battle. That was Zatul Riqab, another battle. Right, so Zatul Salasil. Yeah, Zatul Salasil. Right, so in this, Sayyidina Amr bin al-As, he forbade the people from lighting fires. So Sayyidina Umar bin al-Khattab became angry, right, and intended to have words with him. But Sayyidina Abu Bakr prevented him, saying that leave him, for Rasulullah did not appoint him over us, but for his experience in war. Right, so this is how they respect their leader. They really have very high respect for their leader. Even if they don't agree with what the leader is doing, they will obey their leader. Right, Sayyidina Amr bin As, it's interesting why some chose him. You know, over there's Sayyidina Abu Bakr there, there's Sayyidina Umar there, there's like big Sahaba there. Right, but still some chose him to be the leader. Right, so it was narrated for us Sayyidina Amr to light a fire. Right, and it could be cold because it's up in Syria. Right, so it could be that it was cold over there. Right, but he forbade them from doing so for 3 days. It was very hard on them because of the extreme cold. Right, true enough, because Syria has winter. Like it can snow there. It can actually snow. So, but he refused to let them light fires, and probably he knew that in lighting fires, right, it could very well be easy for the enemy to attack, because they can see the fire. Right, so he knew what he was doing lah. So they spoke to Abu Bakr, and Amr said, "Have they sent you to me?" Right. So have they sent you to me? Verily, not any one of them will start a fire, but that I would throw him into it. Right. They met the army and they defeated him. Right, so even Sayyidina Abu Bakr, in a sense, nobody can speak with the leader, right, if he had decided for that. Right, and on this situation also, there were Sayyidina Amr bin al-As, right, when they were returning to Medina, Sayyidina Amr bin al-As he went into Junub one of the nights. Right, he actually went to Junub one of the nights, right, and he woke up and he knew he was in Junub, right, because of a dream. Right, so then he said to the Sahaba, "What should I do?" Right, you know, what should I do that I am in Junub and it's a very cold night, right? And then and he said, if I bathe, I will die because of the coldness of the water. You can actually die, right, from the coldness, right? So he called for water, right? He istinja'd himself, right? Then he did wudu, right? And then for the prayer, right? And then he did tayammum, right, for the Junub. Right, he did that. Right, interesting that he decided for himself what to do. Because there was the Rasul was not there to ask what is the hukum right now. Right, do I bathe? Do I not bathe? Because I bathe, I will die. Right, so he just washed istinja, he wudu, he tayammum. Right, then he got up and he began to be the imam in the prayer. He began to be imam. Right, so when he did this, right, then he sent one of the Sahaba with a letter to Rasulullah to give the good news of the victory, right, and to inform of the safe returning of the army. Right, and then thereafter, later on, he will actually inform Rasulullah of what he did, right, and he was affirmed, right, that what he did was correct, right, because what he did was correct, right, because he who have killed himself, right, in doing that, right, and Rasulullah, he praised him lah, like, about his prayer. So when Sayyidina Amr said, he asked him about my prayer, and he said, "Oh Amr, you let the companions pray when you said of ritual impurity." Right, and then he said that if I had taken my bath, I would have died. And Rasul smiled at him and said nothing, which means it's okay, right, in that situation for him to actually do tayammum, right, in that situation. Right, so the prayer was, and he also asked Sayyidina Amr, like, why do you stop them from building a fire, right? And then he said that, right, if we build a fire, right, there's scarce numbers who have been discovered by the enemy. Right, in a sense, if they were to build fires, the enemy, because by fire you can figure out how many people there are in the army by looking at how many fires there are. This is an army strategy. By seeing the number of fires, you can see how many, you can gauge roughly how many people there are. And the Muslims are very few. Right, so the fire we have exposed that they were actually very few. Right, not a lot. Right, so in a sense, so he didn't want the enemy to figure out that they were actually few, and also to figure out where they were camping. I will make very easy target lah for the enemies. Right, and that was Zatul Salasil. That was the the Ghazwa. I will jump to the Ghazwa of Abu Ubaidah at the seashore. Okay, this Ghazwa, they didn't meet the enemy, if I'm not wrong, they didn't meet the enemy, right? But there was an interesting thing that happened, right, halfway through the Ghazwa. I think I told the story before, right, about the whale and the whale story. Okay, I'll just read through lah, Right, so in the month of Rajab, in the 8th year, Rasulullah sent Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah bin Jarrah with 300 men of the Muhajirin and Ansar, right? And amongst the army was Sayyidina Umar bin Khattab, right, to actually meet a caravan of the Quraysh, right? And it is said to fight a faction of Juhayna at the Qabaliyah in the coast 5 days from Medina. Okay, so here, right, some of the scholars say that this battle actually happened prior, because they went to intercept a caravan of the Quraysh. This would not be possible if the Treaty of Hudaybiyah was already signed. Okay, the treaty signed, and it meant that they were not going to attack each other. Look at his voice here. Right, the treaty was signed. That means they're not supposed to attack each other. Right, so the very fact that they are going out to intercept the caravan, right, some scholars say that this thing happened actually before the treaty. Scholars, they differ which happened when, because of the narrations, the different narrations that come from it. Right, so the story goes that Rasulullah gave them a pouch of dates, one pouch of dates, right, and they were about 300 men on this battle, 300 men with a pouch of dates, right. And the reason why he did that was because he couldn't find anything else for them. They were that poor. There was nothing else to give the army, right, to sustain them. So that pouch of dates he gave them, right, and Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah would ration this pouch of dates. And so what he would do is that he would give every Sahabi in the army, right, one date, right, and one date to last them. Everybody gets one date, right. So they will take the date and then they will just lick, right. Whenever they're hungry, they will lick the date. Right, and then so it will last them for quite some time, like one day, because you're licking it each time, right? And then they will after it gets to the seed, because it takes a period of time, it gets to the seed, right? They begin to suck on the seed, right? And after that, they put the seed in the water and then drink the water. They don't get every tiny drop of nutrient from the date. Right? What else does this say of the Sahaba? So you see, when they all go out for Ghazwa and for battle, all that, it's not for fun, It's really not for fun. It's not like that how some of these people out there, when they write against, they write slander against the Muslims, saying that the Muslims went out there to fight and to plunder and to kill and to whatsoever. They only went when it's needed, because it's really tiring. It's tiring. It's starvation. In the hot sun. Marching down to try and meet this enemy. They're not even there. They don't even come up. They don't even show up. And you go back. Right, it's not something that you do for fun at all. Right, so it's something that they had to do because of necessity. They had to do it because of necessity. Right, so it says here that he will ration them that when they had traveled part of the way, the provisions dwindled. Right, it finished. Right, so he called for the whole troops' provisions. They collected, and among 2 bags of dates, right, he distributed in various class amount. Right, so they began counting their dates at this point. Right, in the end, he gave everybody one date to suck like a child, and they suck like a child, right? And they would drink water, and they would that was sustainable the entire day, right? And and then somebody asked Sayyidina Jabir, who was part of his army, like, what is good is a date to you? You need one date to sustain you the entire time. Then he says, you know what? When we ran out of our dates, we missed our dates, and nothing to eat at all. We missed it sorely when they ran out of dates. Right, so when they ran out of the dates, eventually, right, they ate the leaves they found. So along leaves. So whatever plant they found, they would chew on it. Right, the branches, the twigs, they would chew on it to sustain themselves. Right, so that's why he said that human beings can actually last. They can actually last without food. Right, because the Sahaba were going for jihad. Right, and they were really, they were very thin. They grew very thin, like on this jihad. And then they will wet the leaves or the branches with water to make it soft a bit. Right, and then they will eat that. They try to sustain themselves on that. Right, they ate until the sides of their mouths became full of ulcers. And it hurt lah to keep chewing on all these things. Right, they're still on they're still marching, and they have not reached their battlefield yet. They're still marching. Still on the way. This is all on the way. Right? So even the battle yet is on the way. Right? Then they said that they camped, so that they were walking by the sea, and they came on the shore for half a month, right? And they were smitten with severe hunger, right? The Sahaba, right? And it was called the army of fallen leaves because they used to hit the trees to get the leaves down, right? To eat the leaves from the tree. So Al-Qais bin Sa'ad bin Ubadah saw the extent of the Muslims' exhaustion, right? And he said, "Who will buy dates from me in Medina for a camel here?" Right? The man of Juhana said, "Who are you?" And he said, "I am the son of Sa'ad." Right? The man of Juhana said, "How well do I know your lineage, and is there a friend and a friendship is between me and Sa'ad?" So he sold him 5 camels and load of dates, right? And a number of the companions were called to bear witness to the deal. Right? Sayyidina Umar refused, and he said, "I will not witness this man is buying against his father's money and has no money of his own." Ibn Juhana said, "Sa'ad would never let his son down. I see a good fish in a noble act." Right? Sayyidina Umar and Qais argued. So basically, this is Qais, right? He met people who were all along the way, right? So he says to him, right, that give me some of your camels, and when you go to Medina, claim dates from my father. Right? So basically, he's doing a transaction whereby it says on credit. Right? So he's saying to the man, like, send me your camels so we can slaughter the camels and eat the camels. And when you go to Medina, you can claim the price of the camels in dates from my father. Right? So he said that. Right? And then the man says, "Who are you? Why should I trust you? Right? That you will give me the dates." So he gave his lineage. And then Sayyidina Umar disagreed with this transaction. Right? Basically, he said that, you know what, your father will not pay for this. Right? And then the man said, "No, my father will pay for me. I can trust my father." Right? And then the man said, the man who had the camel said, he says, right, because I know the tribe, they will pay for the camels. So they argue, right, and Qais spoke harsh words and took the camels. He slaughtered 3 camels, right, 1 each day, and so on the 4th day, his Amir forbade him, saying, "I order you not to slaughter. Do you wish to let down in your debt, and you have no money of your own?" So Qais has no money, but his father has money. He has no wealth, right, but he says his father is going to pay for it. Right, so he says, "Oh Abu Ubaidah." So Abu Ubaidah, after he slaughtered 3 camels, 1 each day to feed the people, he says, "Oh Abu Ubaidah, do you believe that Abu Thabit, who pays the debts of people, spends money on those who have many children and gives out food in times of famine? I will not pay me back for a lot of days that I owe this group of fighters in the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." So Abu Ubaidah allowed him, right, to do what he was doing. So basically his entire situation is all about credit. The Sahaba had a khilaf. There was a khilaf with the Sahaba. Right, Sayyidina Umar was completely against this, because in a sense, you see, he bought the camels on credit, not his credit, his father's credit. Right? You know, so his tribe's credit. And without asking them also, because they're in travel. Right? So this is what he did. Right? And he says, "Give me the 5 camels, they're going to pay you back." They have no idea what's going on. Right? Sayyidina Umar is very much against this. And he kept on saying, stop him doing that. Right? Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, and in this you didn't ask permission. So why are you so sure, right, that you are going to be paid back? You know, so you cannot do this. So Umar to him is like, it's just not ethical. You can't buy something and make someone else pay for it, right? You know, and you didn't ask them in the first place. This person Qais, right, he says, but the person that I'm putting the credit on is putting the credit on somebody else, right? He is known for his generosity, and he feeds women and children in times of difficulty. So he will pay back. I'm sure he will pay back, especially for an army going out for jihad. You know, so Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah is between the two of them. He is the Amir. He's like, he's hearing him, and he's between the two of them. So at one point he agrees with Qais. At one point he agrees with Omar. Right. So in a sense, there's this big khilaf, right, that happened between the Sahaba. Right. So but he continued what he was doing. So Sa'ad, right, the father, I heard of what they were going through in terms of hunger. He said, "If Qais as I know, he was slaughtered for the people." Right, and he mentioned that. So the father, when he heard what was going on with the Sahaba and they were all hungry, he said to himself, "My son, if he is the one if he is as I know how he is, he would get camels and put it on my credit." So he kind of know that his son will do that. Right, so in a sense, so Qais was right in a way. In this case, Qais was right, even though Sayyidina Umar was very much against it. right? But in a sense, he did that, and it was said that he slaughtered 9 camels, right, 3 a day, and then he was forbidden to continue by Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah. Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah eventually stopped him from doing it. Says enough, enough camels you've been taking from other people, right? Still, they continued and they reached starvation again. Right, so it's a long journey, and they're really journeying very long. So it was several weeks, right, of journey, right? So like even up to a month or more than a month, Allahu Alam, right? So they are traveling for a long. They say when they say this, when these people say that Muslims go out to kill and plunder and whatsoever, it's not easy, It's not easy to go out and fight jihad. It's very hard, right? So they are going through this difficulty. So then there's this story that you find in Surah Salihin. Surah Salihin is this entire hadith narrated by Abu, if I'm not wrong, Sayyidina Jabir radhiyallahu anhu, who narrates this hadith, whereby they were walking by this sea when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala threw forth a huge creature. It's called Al-Anbar. Al-Anbar, some say it was a sperm whale, Allahu Alam. I would say it was a big creature from the sea. Right, so it was like a whale, like a small hill. Some of the Sahaba described it to be a small hill. And a huge whale that was thrown from the sea. Right, so Sayyidina Jabir narrates, we saw from a distance, right, the shape of a large dune on the shore. Right, so we went to it, and it was a creature, right, called Al-Anbar. Right, at first Abu Ubaidah said it's a dead carcass. That means not halal. It's a dead carcass. Right, thereafter he said, but we are fighting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we are muttar. Right, muttar, that means we are darurat. We are dying of hunger. We must eat. So even though it's a carcass, we must eat. Right, but thereafter Rasulullah will show them that this whale is halal anyway because it's from the sea. So sea is halal anyway. Right, whether or not you are in dire need or not, right, whatever is from the sea is halal. Right, all sea creatures are halal. Right, so Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, so again they are doing qiyas. It's called qiyas, or they are basically they are without the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the ulama mention all these stories to show how the Sahaba discuss hukum, right? They're discussing hukum, right? Because the Prophet's not there. So just how when the credit, also there was there was this huge argument with the Sahaba, because Rasul is not there. So do we do it? Do we not do it? So Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, being a leader, okay, slaughter your camels, right? Put it on credit. But after what, he felt uncomfortable. You're doing too many. It's 9 camels ready. Enough. Like not so much. Right? Sayyidina Umar from the very beginning said no. Right? He's of the opinion that no, you can't do these kind of things. Right? So from there, the khilaf of the Sahaba. Right? So if someone says, can I, eat someone's thing or use his money, right? Knowing that he'll be okay with it, without me asking him first. Like if you say that if I take my husband's money, I saw it on the table, I need money at that point, right? I SMS, he didn't respond to me, so I just took it because I needed it at that moment in time. Can or not? Right, the question comes, can or not? Like, can I do it? With full conviction that he will allow me. Because I know he will say yes if he saw the message. Right? But he was not there, or your father or whatsoever, he was not there. But he will say yes. Right? But then you didn't actually ask permission. Right? So Sayyidina Umar is on the side of, there's no permission. You can't do it. And Sayyidina Qais was on the side of, but I know he will say yes. Right? So that's why you have these stories coming out to show Muslims, right, how did the companions decide. And still both opinions were correct. Both were correct. So you can't say Sayyidina Umar was wrong and he was correct, or he was correct and Sayyidina Umar was wrong. You can't say. And Sayyidina Abu Ubaidah, he is in between, and he allowed half and half. In a way, he allowed for it for a while, then he stopped it. No more. You can't do it anymore because enough wealth of your father. Dah. And so something like if you see the money of your father or whatsoever, you take an amount because he will say yes. But you don't go and take 1,000. You go off with 1,000 because that one a bit grey area. He might say no, but like 50. Probably say yes. He won't say no. 10, of course I will say yes. He won't say no to you. And these are all stories from the Sahaba was to learn from how they actually decided on a law, right, without the Prophet there. It means they were being trained by the Prophet because in a few years he's going to pass away. And the Sahaba will be left. And up to today, the Muslims are left in a way to use what he has taught us to try and figure out what is the hukum. And that's why you have the solution of qiyas. Qiyas is basically what he said, what is happening, you compare. You compare to get a hukum out. Right? Ijma' is basically like a lot of the scholars say can. So just go on that opinion of they say can be done. So Sayyidina Ubaidah, he saw this whale. They are starving, you know. His first response is not halal. Like they are starving. But their wara', their scrupulousness. The first thing before running to the whale to eat the whale, his first response is a carcass, not halal. Then he thought about it. But we are muttarrin. You know, we are in darurat situation. We are going to die of hunger. Can. You know, so in his head, he's trying to figure out whether halal or not halal to eat this creature. Right? But probably at that point, he did not know that all sea creatures are halal. So thereafter, they actually brought back some meat with them to Medina. They brought back, and Rasul heard about the story. He asked them, "Give me some of the meat. I want the barakah." Because it was a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to them. So when he ate the meat of this creature, the Sahaba concluded that the meat is halal. Because Rasul is in Medina, he's not starving, he's okay, and he ate the meat. So which means it's halal. So that's why he actually took the meat and he ate the meat. To show them that it is not haram because it's from the sea. So sea creatures are regardless of how halal they are. Sushi, I don't know. Maybe because they were eating it and they were not cooking it. It was raw.
So it was so huge, you didn't finish it, right?
You didn't finish it, no. But you see the story. They had like fun with this creature, right? They had fun with this creature. You see what they say. So they had fun. They played. In the sense they were so amazed by how big it was. They've never seen it before in their lives because they all live in the desert, kan? So they've never seen like this huge creature. Right, so they said that. So they ate for it for a month. Right, so 1 month. So they stayed there for 1 month eating this creature to gain fat back because they grew very thin. They were trying to gain back their fat. Right, so mashallah, it's human beings of last time. Human beings dulu. Stay for a month, right, until they gain weight, right, and their bodies grew healthy. Right, and then Jabir said we would dip and fill our containers of fat from its eye sockets. Right, and then and we would cut chunks of it as big as an ox. They were so amazed by these creatures. So, No. Chunks from this. The eyes, they were saying that 13 men could fit in the eye socket. Grown men can sit in the eye socket, which means they actually tried. They actually tried to sit inside. So how big was that? I don't think it's a whale also. Yeah, they could sit in the eye socket. If you have 10 men, you see how big the circle is, eh? And then like this was the eye of the whale, or whatever this animal was. I don't think whales' eyes are that big. Is it that big? Right. There was some creature that they found. Some animal they found. Right. So the ulama today they wonder what animal was this. The Sahaba found. They found some animal. We don't know what animal it was. Right, and so they say that they could cut chunks of the meat as big as an ox from the meat of this creature. Right, they cut and then they would eat from it. Right, and they say it was fat. The creature was fat, a lot of fat in the creature, and they began to gain weight from this creature. And then it said that they took one of the ribs of this creature. So it has a rib, like a rib from this creature. Right, and then they took their tallest camel. So they were playing in the creature because they're doing all these things. So they took their tallest camel, right, with the tallest man to sit on the tallest camel, and this tallest man on the tallest camel, like, could ride through the rib without hitting the rib. Sitting on the camel, right, or they could be standing. Allahu alam. Right, and they pass through the rib of this creature. You know how tall camels are? They're very tall, camels. They're very, if a grown man stands up, his head probably reaches to the bottom stomach of the camel. Camels are tall, right? So basically the height of the camel and the camel's head itself stretched out. That's a good, about 5 meters, 4 meters. Allahu alam. It's tall. So the camel could go through the ribs without touching the top of the rib. Right. Orang big creature lah. And strange thing that happened lah. So macam the Sahaba, they narrate all these things. So they were also very amazed by what is this creature. Right. So and they went through it. Right. So they began to eat from it for a month. They became fat. Right. So then they realized that when they went further on, they couldn't find the caravan or whatsoever. There was no enemy or anything. They went home lah. They went through all of that and they went home. Kesian, mashallah. But mashallah, they experienced this creature. There are some actually that in their time. It was a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah gave them this gift from the sea to feed them because they were starving. So they went and they cut some of the meat and they brought it along with them back to Medina to just find out about this creature, right, whether it's halal or not. And so they brought it with them to Medina. When they came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they told him what happened. Sometimes you wonder how they keep the meat for so long. Kan? It's a fish. 1 month they sat there and they ate the thing. Huh? It's cold weather. Maybe could be cold weather. So maybe the fish. Yeah, go. Correct. Maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the fish, don't rot. Don't rot. And you wonder like how they keep all these things and then they bring with themselves and everything. Allah, but could be the cold weather that it was kept preserved. And then they ate the sushi, it's refrigerator weather. They kept eating this meat. So they went back to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what happened, and he said, it is rizqi that Allah has given you. Do any of you have some of his meat to offer us? And they sent some to Rasulullah and he ate it. Right, so when he ate it, right, so that showed that the meat was halal, regardless of whether or not they were in meat. Right, okay. Alhamdulillah, and that is that battle. So that's why I told my you all that the battle basically just happened like that. Right, I mean it's just Macam Muhammad. They call it the Ghazwa of the leaves because they eat leaves in that Ghazwa. Sariyah, it's called Sariyah. Sariyah is when Rasulullah does not follow them out to a battle. Right, so it's called Sariyah. Yes, Sariyah. Yes, he's the leader of the people. Right, there is okay. There is another one last battle, right? But it's a long battle. There are a few battles here that happen whereby the Muslims they mistakenly kill non-Muslims who claim to be Muslims. Right, so they're not all Muslims, but they're actually Muslims. Right, but the Muslims killed them, right, claiming that these people claim to be Muslims, but they're not actually Muslims. But they actually so basically what happened was that, right, this story of right, so the story of Osama bin Zaid, but it's not this one, it's another one. Right, Osama bin Zaid, he was one of those. There were actually a few of the companions who this happened to them, but they got to battle. And this is again you see a prophetic standing point. His lessons here, right? So basically, right, when the people of Mecca broke the treaty, this is the one. Osama intended to raid them. He sent Abu Qatada bin Rabi' with 8 people in the Sariyah in early Ramadan in the 8th year of Hijrah to the belly of Idam, right? And then for them to raid the people there, right? So because the Quraysh, they were the first ones who actually broke the treaty, right? So they greeted. So when they arrived at this valley, right, Amir came across them on a camel with small baggage, right? Behind him in a leather containing milk. Okay, this person was not known to be a Muslim, and he was of the tribe that was there. He greeted them the greeting of Islam. I said Assalamu alaikum to them. I said Assalamu alaikum. That means, so there is an indication to the Sahaba that person is a Muslim. Right, so not to touch him. So they held back from him, right? But Muhalim bin Jathama, whose name was Zaid bin Qais, confronted him and killed him. Right, for an old conflict between them, took his camel and his baggage. So one of the companions who was with this group killed that man because they had an old affair, an old situation last time. So he killed the man on the account and robbed him, right, from it. Right. Then they departed, having not met the army they were supposed to send kids again. They went out there, they didn't meet anybody, came back. Right, so this basically what happened was that they went out, to meet to intercept a people, to ambush a people. They didn't find them because it's desert. You go out, you can search, you cannot find where they are because they can hide easily. They met this man who gave them salams, right? Salams, assalamu alaikum. That's called the greeting of Islam, right? Because in the past they did not give that kind of salams, right? So assalamu alaikum, right? The most of the army they stayed away from this man, but one of them killed him and took his stuff, right? So then they left and went back to Medina. When they reached Medina, right, this story was told to Rasulullah alaihi wasallam, and Rasulullah called him, right, this Zayd, right, bin Qais, right, he called him, right, and he said to him, right, did you kill him after he said that I am a Muslim? I mean, after he said assalamu alaikum, and then he says that, you know, he only said he only said it to for us to not touch him. It was more of protection, so he's faking it. And some say that you cut open, right, his heart or his chest. You look into his heart to see if he really said it out of being a believer or out of fear of your sword. This is one of those people who actually did this. Sayyidina Osama bin Zayd also did the same thing. Yeah, same story. Sayyidina Osama bin Zayd, right? He also he pursued one this, and they were in battle actually. They were actually in battle, and so the disbeliever was a disbeliever actually, right? So he pursued a disbeliever. And when he was about to strike him, he says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan Rasulullah. But Sayyidina Osama bin Zayd, he still went on and he killed him. Right? So the Sahaba is a big thing that you just did. Right? So they went back and they reported to Rasulullah, right? And he called Sayyidina Osama bin Zayd. And there are a few narrations of this incident, right, whereby Rasulullah got very angry. Right? They could see his face becoming red, right, because of what Sayyidina Osama did. And he says, you know, how will it be on the day of judgment against La ilaha illallah? Then when this man said La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah and you still killed him, and then, you know, on the day of judgment, he has a right over you because he's a Muslim. And he said La ilaha illallah. And so someone kept saying that, you know, but he was saying it out of fear of the sword, But some say, how do you know? How do you know? Right? And he said it because of that. So here we see, from Rasulullah that whatever is the outward of a person, you accept it like that. It's to be accepted. Even if you feel that they are not sincere, they are faking it, they are doing whatever, you take the outward. The outward, you get the benefit of the doubt. The outward is taken from these people. So, you know, Osama bin Zayd, he, to the point, Osama was so upset with him, to the point that he said that, you know, if only I had not become Muslim to that point. And why did he say that? He was born Muslim. He was born Muslim. Right, but why did he say that? Because he was so afraid of the sin that he has committed, of killing this Muslim. But of course he did it not knowing what was the ruling. Do you still kill someone after they say La ilaha illallah? You know, or even if you think that they are faking it, or do you not kill them? But subhanallah, right? Of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive him, inshallah. Alright, alhamdulillah, right, we have finished the 8th year. There are a lot more. It's a lot of battles in this 8th year. We will enter into, are you all tired? The conquest of Mecca, right? And the conquest of Mecca, you know, mashallah, it happens in the 8th year of Hijrah, right? Because the 9th year thereafter is the year of the Wufud. So the year of the Wufud is with the year of delegations. And the 10th year, you will find the Hajj, the farewell pilgrimage of Rasulullah, which will end off with his death, in the 11th year. Right? That is towards the end lah. Okay. So any questions specify? It's very nice eating. Zayd bin Qais, yeah, Zayd bin Qais. Bin Qais lah. Qais. He's one of the companions. They didn't. He pursued the guy himself. Yeah, he killed him and robbed him. Because they still have tribal, in a sense, understandings in them. The Sahaba. Because they're tribal. So he had an issue with this guy last time. They had a fight or something. So while they are Muslim, right, but the tribal, in a sense, baggage still there. Yeah. The robbing Sayyidina Muhammad.
Robbing allowed?
Right. Huh?
In that sense?
No. It's not allowed. Because he's not it's not a Muslim. I mean, it's a Muslim. It's a Muslim. And on the account also, Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala revealed the verse. O you who believe, when you travel in the way of Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala, then be careful. That means investigate carefully, and don't say to anyone who offers you salams, you're not a believer, because you actually covet, or you actually want his perishable goods in this life. You want his stuff and his wealth. Right? Allah Subhanahu Wa Taala has prevented this. Right? So it was basically this person who did this. He asked Rasulullah SAW to forgive him, to ask all to forgive him, and Rasulullah said that Allah will not forgive you.
Allah will not forgive you?
Yeah. No, Afra took something from him. Afra, give back to Afif, Afra. She's put it there. I think marker dia and dia punya paper. It's something that she took it from him and she put it there. And she's a smug look on her face. Very kan? She looks so smug. She put it, she had it there, right? Right. It's his paper and his marker. Yeah, she just went to hide it there. She, mashallah. Siblings lah. They just do this kind of things. Letak yang pergi. Alhamdulillah. Okay, Alhamdulillah. Yeah, so he said that because this yeah, he was one of those. Allahu Alam, Allah Subhanahu Muhallim. His name is Muhallim Hussein Mujib bin Qais. Right. Yalah, he's a companion. Right, he died as a believer. Right, so it is said here. So he mentions the incident of the killing of Amr bin al-Arbat, right, when he was revealed the Quran of it. He made the story of al-Muhallim as follows. There are also some prayed Zuhur in Hunayn, and we sat under the shade of a tree. Al-Aqra bin Habis and Uwaina bin Hassan came to him disputing over Amir bin al-Abbat. Uwaina bin Hassan, the leader of Ghatfan, was calling for his blood, saying that, Ya Rasulullah, I will not leave him until I make his woman taste anguish, like he made my woman taste anguish. So Al-Aqra was trying to avoid the killing of Muhallim bin Jathama because of his position amongst the Khindif. Right? So basically, in a sense, I'm not reading all these things through because it's actually a lot of discussion of what actually happened with this Sahabi, right? So there's a different opinion of what happened to him. Basically, the point is, right, that he killed the person and he robbed him, and then it was said to him that he's not forgiven. Right? And Allahu Alam, Allahu Alam, Allah knows. And somebody scolded him by saying that you give salams to him. When you say Assalamu alaikum, walaikum salam, when you salam someone, you cannot harm them in any way. Right? And that's why our scholars will always say that when you say salam to someone, you can't thereafter go and backbite them or slander them, because you give salams already. So when you give salams, on giving salams, you have affirmed peace from yourself. Then, right? So you cannot actually thereafter harm them with your words or your actions. Given salams before. Right. So and Rasul has said in a hadith whereby he raised his hand and he said, "Oh Allah, do not forgive Muhallim bin Jathama 3 times in a loud voice." Do not forgive. It's a serious affair, right? And he rose and he left, wiping his tears with the edge of his garment. Right, he was heartbroken, right? And Rasul and the Sahaba, they said that they expected Rasul to seek forgiveness for him, but he said that what he said in public so people would fear harming one another. Because why he did this is that, considering you're wondering, did he do that? Right? Did he actually do that? Right? To show it's not a light matter. It's not a light matter, right? Because one thing, the thing that is different for this Sahabi and Mulahim as compared to Osama bin Zaid, right? The big difference is that they went there, they were not actually fighting. This man just went past. He went past. That's one thing. And the man went past. There was no fighting going on. For Usama bin Zaid, there was actually fighting going on. And the man was fighting him. And he was a disbeliever, fighting him. Right? Usama bin Zaid overcame the man. He got the upper hand. And he was about to strike the man. And then he said Shahada. Right? So for Rasulullah, for Usama bin Zaid, his argument is stronger lah. Like in a way. That I really thought he said it out of fear of the sword. Because he was fighting me the entire time. The whole time he was fighting us. Then right before the sword came to him, he said the Shahada. Right? So for Usama bin Zaid, like his excuse or his reason was a stronger reason, right, to do that, because there was no self-interest involved. This Mulahim, right, the man came, was not fighting them. He said Assalamu alaikum onto them, right? There was no fighting going on. There's a salams given, right? And the Sahaba said wa alaikum salam, and they left him, right? He went to pursue the man, and he has unfinished business from last time. So he has like some other agenda as to why he killed the man, right? And he robbed the man, right? And Allahu Alam, Allah knows best, right? Whether he did that thinking that later on, Allah can forgive him. It could be that also. That he's doing it, that Allah can forgive him. Because when he came back, he said, Ya Rasulullah, ask Allah to forgive me. Rasul did not ask Allah to forgive him, because it could be that that he did that, for him to say, because to show how serious the matter is. Muhallim, saying his name wrong. Muhallim did not live more than 7 days after that. Right, the earth expelled him. They tried to bury him. The earth threw him out again. They tried to bury him. The earth threw him out again. He was cursed. This man. He was actually cursed.
Muhallim, the one who got killed.
No. The one who killed the. No. Muhallim is also known as Zaid bin Qais.
Both are the same person.
Yeah, the same person there. It says here, but Muhallim bin Jassama, whose name was Zaid bin Qais, right? So his name was known as Muhallim, right? But then his name was Zaid bin Qais. It's not. We know his name. His name is Al-Amir. Amir bin Adbat Al-Ashja'i. Right, that is his name. Right, so Muhallim is the one that killed the person. So his body, he died 7 days after that. Right, I mean he was cursed. His man, he was cursed. And he tried to bury him, and then the earth threw him out. Right, then when the people gave up, they lay him between two hills, covered him with rocks until he was hidden from sight. Right, so when it was told to Rasulullah what happened, he says, by Allah, the earth has closed in on those who are worse than him. Right, but it was Allah's wish that you be admonished by what happened as to the secretness of life. Right, so in a sense, what Rasul said is that that the earth kept throwing him out. It was more as a warning to everybody else. Don't kill people. Right, so again, he sees today's lesson with a lot of poetic senses. Right, don't kill people without very clear right that they are to be killed. It has to be clear, right? Like they are murderers or whatever, like in the Sharia. Right, so even if there's any form of doubt, you cannot kill at all. Right, as some of the ulama, they say that it is better, right, to judge wrongly, on the account of saving than to judge wrongly on the account of destroying. It's better, right? So if for example you saw a person and they claim to be Muslim, right? So you judge, okay, they're Muslim, but actually they are hypocrites or they are liars, right? So you judge wrongly in a way. It's better than to try to judge and say, oh no, they're not Muslim, and you kill them, and they were Muslim. Right? So it's to err on the side of precaution lah, in a way. Right? To err on the side of precaution means to make mistakes. Right? But it would cause there not to be any form of violence. It's better than to make mistakes and that there will be violence, right, involved. Right? So Rasul said that, so in the hadith that this man, there were actually other people who are worse than him that the earth has accepted. Right? There were people who are worse than him, but the earth did this to this man as a warning, a sign. Right? Don't play with people's lives. Right? And don't think that you can kill and later on ask someone to forgive you and then you get forgiven. Right? Don't think that way lah. Right? So it's also a warning on people who play with sin. Right? So don't think that I can just commit all the sins now. then later on I will taubat. I will ask Allah for forgiveness. But with the intention, you commit sin with the intention of doing taubat later on. Don't play. And don't play with this, right? Because it could very well be that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want to accept your taubat. Then how? Then what are you going to do? Right? The best is to stay away from the sin, instead of planning to sin and then taubat. Because what if your taubat is not accepted? Who says it's going to be accepted? Right? Or what if you have no time to taubat? Right? And then all these things. So subhanAllah, this happened to this man in the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Right, alhamdulillah. Right, so it says that says that Allah, the Almighty, and the Messenger wants to make him an example to you, so that no man amongst you will dare to kill anyone who bears witness that there is no God but Allah, or says that he is a Muslim. Don't you dare. Right, so in our time, right now, what is going on out there, that they are killing, right, people who are saying that they are Muslim, but they claim, oh no, you are kafir, and they make their bloods halal. Right, it's ISIS and whatsoever, they're doing that. So they're doing that. Right? They are killing Muslims, They're actually killing Muslims, but they kafirkan the Muslim first. Right? They say that you are kafir first. Then because now you're kafir by their own judgment, they call them murtads by their own judgment. So now the blood is halal because they're murtad. And then they kill these people. That's how what they're doing right now. So that's how they can justify the killing of other Muslims. Because they make them kafir first. And this is on account of this incident in this hadith. Like they are doing outright murder of other Muslims. They claim to be Muslims. They call it Islamic State. It's called Islamic State, and they all claim to be Muslims. They all claim, Allahu A'lam, they are Muslims. So then on our part also we can't say are they Muslim or not. We also cannot say that ISIS is Muslim or they're not Muslim. We don't know whether they believe or they don't believe. We actually don't know. Right, same thing with like now people who call like other people who do bid'ah or they claim is bid'ah and they call them kafir. Right, there is nothing in the seerah or in the sunnah of Rasulullah to do that. They don't do that. Right, so even Sayyidina Ali's time during the Khawarij, so all Sunnah Mawaqif, right, all the prophetic stances. Right, Sayyidina Ali's time when they talk about the Khawarij, right, and they ask Sayyidina Ali, right, what are they? Are they kafir? And Sayyidina Ali says, no. They say the shahada, they're not kafir. And then the people say, are they hypocrites? And Sayyidina says, no. Right, Allah says the hypocrites remember Allah very, very little. And these people, they spend their nights in prayer. They're not hypocrites. And then they ask Sayyidina Ali, then what are they? And Sayyidina Ali says, they are our brothers who have their own interpretations of things. But they are our brothers in Islam. That's how we understand. So, it is a deep disease that's going on now, that you see online and everything, people calling other people kafir. Right, Rasulullah said in the hadith also, when if one believer calls another believer kafir, one of them is the kafir. Right, so if they call somebody else kafir and the person is not a kafir, they'll come back to them. Right, so to kafirkan is a very serious thing. A very dangerous thing to do actually, to call. That's why subhanAllah, you will never hear any of the righteous ulama call anybody kafir. The moment you hear them call specific so and so who's showing that he's a Muslim, they call somebody a kafir, then you know what, turn away. Right, don't listen to them, right? Because this is not the way of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They always give people on the outward, and they treat people on the outward. So yeah, I know. That's actually not good to say, actually. Because you don't know their end. How they will die. Right? So you can say them, you can call them right now non-Muslims. They're non-Muslims right now, right? Yeah. It could be that they can come into Islam. The kafir, kafir is a very harsh term. Right? Kafir is someone who has heard the truth and turned away. There's the kafir. Right? They've heard the truth exactly. They know all about Islam, they know everything, and they refuse to be there. Abu Jahl, the likes of Abu Jahl, the likes of Umayyah bin Khalaf, the likes of Abu Lahab. These are kafir. They've heard it, turn away. Right? The kuffar. Right? The word kafara in Arabic means to cover over. Right? So to cover over. So they hear the truth, they see the truth, they cover over it. They don't want to believe. That is kafir. For us, amongst non-Muslims, so we call them non-Muslims. Inshallah, Allah may guide them to Islam. Right, inshallah. Right, future, I call them future Muslims there. You can see those preaching Muslims over there. Yeah, Allah Alam. Yeah. But some of the ulama say that that they are not to be called. Some of the ulama have the opinion they are not to be called kafir because they have not disbelief, but they are just in their ignorance. So they don't know about the truth, or they have heard what is not the correct version of Islam. Allah Alam. There are many ulama who differ on this account with respect to the non-Muslims of our time, especially those who don't know much about Islam. They differ. Okay. Alhamdulillah. Okay, so next week we're going to do the Fathul Makkah. Makkah finally falls back into the hands of the believers, right? And that is like a dream of Abu Jahl. It's not a dream of Abu Jahl. There. It's a dream here of Abu Jahl. Yeah. Then Rasulullah had a dream that Abu Jahl came to him and offered his pledge. This is after Abu Jahl had passed away. Died because he died in Badr, right? And they said that he dreamt of a palm tree in heaven that belonged to Abu Jahl. So when Khalid bin Walid, so you see, the dream is that he saw Abu Jahl come to him and pledge his Islam, or he saw in his dream a palm tree in paradise that belongs to Abu Jahl. What that actually means is Ikrimah bin Abu Jahl, Abu Jahl's son, not Abu Jahl. It actually meant Abu Jahl's son. So when Khalid bin Walid embraced Islam, it was said to Rasulullah, Allah has confirmed your dream. It's about Khalid. And he says, no, somebody else. So when Ikrimah came, because Ikrimah will come to Islam at the Congress of Makkah. Ikrimah bin Abu Jahl came, right, to process Islam. Then he said, this one. This is Abu Jahl's tree in paradise. Basically his son came into paradise. Right, Ikrimah bin Abu Jahl. Right, and Ikrimah, he kesian in a sense because he's the son of Abu Jahl, the worst enemy of Rasulullah. So when he became a Muslim, a lot of the Muslims, would say this is son of Abu Jahl, son of Allah's enemy, son of the enemy of the Prophet, they would call him that kind of thing, and he's really a Muslim. So he complained to Rasulullah about it, and he stood up and he defended Sayyidina Ikrimah, and he says that Ikrimah has complained to me, right, about this, right, the best of in Jahiliyyah are the best in Islam if they acquire knowledge, right? So to show that Ikrimah is someone who will acquire knowledge, right? Then they all must give them a chance lah. You can't, right, just strike them off because he's the son of Abu Jahl, right? It's not his fault, his father's like that, right? So a lot of them actually thereafter, even Hind bin Utbah, the one that caused all the killing of Sayyidina Hamza, she becomes a Muslim. So we today call her Sayyidina Hind. She's Sayyidatuna Hind. She's a Muslim. She's a Sahabiyah. She is. Right? Even though in the movie she's like some crook woman, right? In all these movies, she appears as this crook, crazy woman who orders the killing of Sayyidina Hamza, because the movie always stops before she actually becomes Muslim. Right? Or they have the conquest and they don't really show that much thereafter. So everybody has this bad opinion of Sayyidatuna Hind. But she actually becomes a Muslim and she becomes one of the best Muslims thereafter, one of the best Sahabiyat. Even though that previously, they were of the right, they were of the worst of enemies to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But she, mashallah, because in Fath Makkah, the time we're going through lah, when Islam entered into Makkah, he named a few people to be killed, right, because of the crimes of war they have committed, right? But all of them except one became Muslim, so they were all not killed, right? So and she came to Islam completely covered, covered in her face. She came to Islam and said that, what would you say if Hind bin Utbah wants to come to you and profess Islam? And Islam said, I will accept it. And she says, I am Hind. That's because she was not so sure, can she become Muslim? Like her too. So mashallah. Okay, next time when we go to the Fath Makkah, we'll see a lot of conversions in this He bit into the liver of Sayyidina Hamza, and some of the ulama say that it's because she bit the heart actually the heart. And it was said that because some say it was because that she bit into the liver or the heart, something like heart and liver lah, of Sayyidina Hamza, that the iman of Sayyidina Hamza entered into her. And then eventually she became Muslim because she bite. So masuk the iman went into her, so thereafter she became Muslim. Right, So you can never tell, subhanallah. But these are the stories that whereby it said that you can never tell the end of people. And they can be the worst enemy. Really, that you look at the movie of Hind, you see how they portray her. That person becomes Muslim. She does. Like Ikrimah bin Abu Jahal, one of the worst enemies of Rasulullah, also beside his father, becomes Muslim. So many of them become Muslim. Like, subhanallah. And even say Amr bin al-As, he said that the time he was not Muslim, he hated, there was nobody he hated more than the Prophet ﷺ. When he became Muslim, there was one he loved more than Rasulullah ﷺ. It's full change, the Sahaba. Inshallah, we'll stop there. Sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. الفاتحة أن الله يرزق العلم النافع وما كنت أتعين وضلال الكل وصدق من صلى الله عليه وسلم والأرواح معلمنا مشركنا وزوي الحقوق علينا وإلى حضرة النبي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. الفاتحة.